The Yankees have figured out a way to use one of these new bats, Torpedo bats. Geez, I don't know how you could hit 15 home runs with this thing. They're using the Torpedo bat. They hit 15 home runs, 36 runs they scored against the Brewers. Maybe the Brewers aren't so good. And by the way, maybe everybody on the Cubs should start using the old Torpedo bat.
And Nico Horner was this weekend.
Nico's was using it. It is legal. The Athletic wrote an article about it. Rule 3.02, the bat shall be smooth, round stick, not more than 1.61 inches at the thickest part and not more than 41 inches in length, one solid piece of wood. So the new bat basically tries to put the most weight it can right at the barrel. Now, I don't know how that's possible. Nobody's thought of that before, but it sure seems to be working for the Yankees. Even Cody Bellinger hit one like 450 feet.
And Cody Bellinger had them available in the Cubs organization last spring training.
And didn't like it, huh?
Didn't like the way it felt, but he liked the way the Yankees bat felt. There's weight distribution. When you think about it, when you're holding a bat, it's essentially close to choking up. When you have the more the weight close to your hands, that's like when a guy chokes up because they're trying to shorten up their swing. So, however, I would like to see them side by side, but the Cubs and every other organization now has this available to them. It's a legal rule. We saw Nico using it. I think that there will be more guys to come that will use this when they go into slumps. But it is interesting that Bellinger's like, hey, I really like this Yankees bat. It feels so much better because I'm going to stick with my other bat. And then he jacks one 450 feet.
Now,
he didn't hit a 450-foot home run last year.
No, what I'm not
hit
sure
one since 2019.
Yeah.
So the Torpedo bat was designed and the idea came from an MIT graduate, a physics professor who's now in baseball, right? So is it the same bat? Did the Cubs have the exact same bat for Bellinger? Clearly not, because he thought the Yankees one felt slightly different. And how long before? If the Yankees are hitting home runs like this, and they're not named Aaron Judge.
Who's not using one.
Who's not using one because he doesn't need to.
Yeah, he's fine.
Because he's like Jack and the Beanstalk up there, like. Then how long before everybody in baseball is using this?
Well, I know. Well,
or is it just a coincidence? Maybe the Brewers' pitching is that bad.
Well, I do think that it was a bad series from the Brewers, and if you want silver linings, folks in the chat, you want to look at things without fully viewed in on just the Cubs. Like, Brewers had a terrible weekend, and Torpedo bats aren't the reason that the Yankees scored all those runs. All right, so
if we could get Vidal Brujan talking to Sammy Sosa again and a Torpedo bat,
perhaps
he might hit 60.
Perhaps. But
if we could get Esteban Quiroz back and get him that Torpedo bat, his career would be revitalized.
Do you guys remember when Theo Epstein talked about how there needs to be more ways to even out the playing field for hitters too? Another reason, I know there's been a lot of backlash on Twitter, including Brewers closer Trevor McGill saying, oh, they'll let it slide because it's the Yankees. No, they're going to let it slide because it's legal and every team can use them, dude.
There was someone for Nico, but also there's someone for the Twins. I saw John Boy tweet out.
But also, pitching has had the upper hand for the last decade, man. Look at guys like Paul Skeens right now. Look at guys like Yoshinobu Yamamoto. We should absolutely, as fans of the game, as people studying the game, as trying to find the competitive advantage, that's what sports is. Like, we should be this like, oh, wow, cool. A competitive advantage for hitters? Like, that's great. We need more of that.
It's like the PG version of steroids.
Sure, yeah. The healthy version, yeah.
I thought
they should.
I guess
we should stop criticizing Sammy Sosa for using the court bat now.
I would like to know which team had it first.
Yeah, I know.
Like, because we're saying, Bellinger saw it with the Cubs last year but didn't want to use it.
I didn't hear this news. Where did you read that?
I read that on ESPN.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I read that on an ESPN article.
My whole thing, on a serious note about it, was like, why is this just now becoming a thing?
So
where was this 10 years ago?
Weren't they using it in spring training? They had to have been.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about it to this point, but yeah, it's interesting.
The article says Bellinger was first presented with the torpedo-shaped concept in batting practice last season with the Chicago Cubs. He did not use it. He was given a more advanced version during spring training this year. I started swinging one this year in spring. kind of early on, and I was like, oh, it feels pretty good. It was an ounce lighter than the one I was swinging, but I think the weight was distributed. It felt really good. So, I mean, anybody who's played baseball and swung a bat, when you like the big barrel, I remember when you go from Little League to travel or high school and you can use a bigger barrel, it obviously feels different. So this is going to be, as long as it's in the confines of what MLB allows, your swing pattern might change a little bit, but shoot, man, I mean, if that unlocks Cody Bellinger, which again, let's not jump off the ledge just yet, but I mean, it's pretty impressive if he can hit anytime you can hit a ball 450 feet and you haven't done that in 5-6 seasons. I mean, there's probably something to the bat assisting you in a way.
Sure.
So, right.
But I don't know. I wonder who had it first. Yeah.
I'll just say with what you just said that I'm pro for it, because you're right. As fans of the game, I do think offense is what brings people to baseball or just sports in general. Now, I don't want offense in baseball to get to the point where it kind of feels like it is with the NBA or anything like that, or even the NFL with how they throw flags. But
I don't need home runs to be the 3-point shot in the NBA.
Exactly. And sometimes it feels like that until they implemented those rules with the pitch clock and the bigger bases,
for
the
more pizza boxes at second base,
and all those new rules they implemented. It created more chaos on the base paths, which creates more excitement for the game, right? So they have implemented new rules that have made it more exciting, and it doesn't feel like launch angle is just be all or all be all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I like them just because it does potentially can increase offense, and let's just be honest, man, like. That if you're going to create new fans, you have to do that. So that's just kind of how I feel.
Yeah. When's the next scientist going to show Cubs bullpen arms how to not walk guys? Because that's the next invention we need.
Yeah.
And I think with the bullpen too today, the one thing I wanted to mention about Nate Pearson, he on paper and just kind of watching him throw 100 miles an hour looks great on paper, but it seems to me, and I'd love for Brendan to dive into this at some point for us, the fastball looks a little flat to me, and I think that is leading to him getting absolutely annihilated by some of these left-handed hitters. And if he can't get it going, it's a bummer, because you look at anybody who throws 100 miles an hour, you would think that you could at least get a salvageable relief appearance out of him, but he struggled, and he did get squeezed a lot today too. With his margin for error already so slim, not getting certain off-speed calls at the top of the zone and not getting certain fastballs at the bottom of the zone called, I mean, that's really going to hurt a guy like that. And it did today. The walks absolutely crushed.
And wasn't that him that we said about the same thing about the other day? It was like, wow, they didn't help him any. But it's like when you're that erratic with your command, those calls are going to go against you most of the time. That's the way it works.
He did have a few calls that were borderline that he didn't get. But that's what happens when you're not, your command isn't great. So